Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee. Thank you for tuning in to these conversations at the intersection of arts, culture, and community. Today, we're delving into the world of a visual master whose lens has chronicled an array of narratives, from the intimate corners of human emotion to the grand stages of global brands. His work not only reflects the zeitgeist, but also shapes it, engaging with giants like Apple and Hulu while keeping his finger firmly on the pulse of the streets. Please welcome Shawn Peters. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you for making the time. And, you know, I've made a point over like the last 4 months to have more of the video component. I don't do the full video, but I do have excerpts from it. And it's great to see someone that's wearing what my normal fit is, because that's a sweatshirt, I'm assuming. And so that's a normal fit that I would wear. It's my hat, sweatshirt, beard. We're here. We out
here. Terrence got his little mattress right here, so let me just turn over here to the cold drink.
So before we get into the deeper conversation, I want to give you the space to introduce yourself. I think that there is a lot that's there that often gets missed when we have the artist statement or the online bio. I remember doing an interview with someone. I'm going over all of the accolades, and they were like, "You forgot one." I was like, "Which one is that?" And they were like, "I'm a human." And I was like, "All right, I'm going to start passing it off to people, put the onus on you." So if you will, could you give us a little bit, who are you? Like, introduce yourself.
I'm Shawn Peters. I would say I'm an artist who's really interested in beauty and beauty in objects. You know, I'm a filmmaker by trade, so my checks will often say cinematographer or director of photography in title right at the moment. But I also am a collector of fine art, ceramics. I love chocolate, dark chocolate. And there's something else that I was thinking of literally yesterday. I was like, man, you love that. And now I can't think of it. I like a lot of things. I like objects. I like beauty. I like things that are beautiful.
That's dope. See, it's better than what I would have found online. You know what I mean? So it's working. It works. And I too enjoy dark chocolate. It's like, look, you know, it's got to be 70% pure. Let's make it. So from the creative side, I like to go back to some of those moments, those early moments that kind of set you on your path, like maybe some of those early life moments or some of those inspirations that, you know, had you realizing hey, I like beautiful things, or hey, I like the way this looks. I like this visual. Tell me about some of those early moments where creativity was just top of mind, not even early in the career, but just this sort of early realization of creative things for you.
I have to say, to give context, that I never thought of myself as an artist. And that came late in life. You know, I thought when I was in junior high school, let's say, I really respected Bill Cosby, right? And I was like, from Fat Albert to, you know, the Cosby Show and all those things that were happening. I understood his power, not, you know, over other people, but I understood his ability to, you know, to educate, not just educate, but to, you know, be in the lexicon, be in culture, to create culture for Black people, and to influence minds in a certain way. So in junior high school, I realized that media was important, and I didn't know how I would participate, but I thought maybe I might be a journalist, you know, or I would go to journalism school, or even might be on, you know, even a newscaster or something. I was like, oh, maybe I'll just be a newscaster. I'll be in journalism. Yeah. So I didn't really know. I didn't have anyone in my family. I come from a very working class, sort of Black family from New York, Bronx, Harlem, and New Rochelle, Mount Vernon. And no one that I knew personally was a full-time artist that made money.
Right.
Not a single human being that I knew personally, you know? So everyone I knew had jobs. They may be poets. My uncle might have had a little book published one time. They might like painting, or they might, what I mean? They might like theater or film or music, but they had day jobs. Everybody just had a job. So I had a few cousins that maybe were interested in things that were more eclectic or more interesting, but they all had degrees. Some had degrees, some didn't, but they all worked.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really know for the longest time that was a thing, a job. And it wasn't. So I went to Morehouse undergrad, and I thought I was going to be an English teacher, but I had friends who were making small films there.
Yeah.
And there's a famous professor named Dr. Eichelberg, who was at Clark, who taught a 16 millimeter film production class. It was like 16 millimeter 1 and 2 as an elective.
Yeah.
And so in the AUC, you can take classes anyway. If you're Morehouse, you can take classes at Clark or at Spelman, as long as you take your major courses at your primary institution. And so I took those courses.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's interesting. I still didn't know if I was good at it in any way. But my friend at the time, Jonathan Roper, who was from New York, was making these short films, and he was engaging me, and he would have me camera operate sometimes, and blah, 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 blah. But I still, even before I graduated, didn't think I was going to be a filmmaker. I'd already been interviewing my senior year at high schools to teach English.
Yeah.
And so, to make a long story short, Jonathan was like, yo, there's this film program at the University of South Carolina that's up the road. I'm going to go show my film to the head of the film department. Do you want to take a ride? And I was like, why not? It's a 4-hour drive. So we drove up. He showed his film, which was like a proto Daughters of the Dust kind of thing. It was like before Daughters of the Dust, but it was about kind of Gullah, but in Savannah, the Savannah Seance, So he did this little film about that. And we went and showed it to, her name was Dr. Wirtz, who was the head of the department. And I can't remember the professor's name at the time for some reason. But he went in on the film saying it wasn't universal enough and that it wouldn't appeal to a broader audience. Two white people, right?
Right.
So, and my friend Jonathan is not I wouldn't say the most verbal person on the planet. He's a visual person. Yeah. And so he was kind of just like allowing that conversation to happen. Yeah. And so I wasn't there for any reason. So I just jumped in on the conversation and he started chopping this dude down about cultural specificity and what does that mean? Yeah. Is Schindler's List too culturally specific? Mm-hmm. Why is this Gullah film too cold? What does that mean? Are white people not curious? Mm-hmm. And so we went to this whole thing, and he conceded to my argument. And before I left, Dr. Wirtz was like, can I stay in touch with you? And I was like, this is before cell phones, really. It was like the first cell phones. I didn't have them when I was in college. Yeah. And it was like, they were expensive. We had pagers and stuff like that back then. And I gave her my mom's number, literally, in New York. Like, here's my mom's number. You can call her, And so I had an internship back in New York that summer that I always had. My cousin hooked me up with to make a little extra money. And I got a call there from my mom saying that someone named Dr. Wirtz called and wanted to talk to me. Yeah. So I called her back. I kind of remember, and I was like, yeah, okay. I called her back, and she was like, would you be interested in coming to school here? And I was like, well, I didn't apply. She was like, don't worry about the application. Just, get your transcript sent. She said, but I'm willing to offer you a full scholarship and a TA position.
Oh, wow. So
I ended up going to the University of South Carolina to study film, and by accident, really. I had no intention of going there, Wow. And so that's how the creativity started. It was in that program. I actually started getting more interested in still photography. Yeah. There was a guy named Gene Crediford, professor there, quirky, looked like Einstein, quirky dude, who introduced me to the work of Roy DeCarava, who was a famous Black photographer, one of our greatest influences as Black cinematographers. Yeah. I didn't know that at the time, and I had never heard of him. I knew about Gordon Parks and a few other cats, but Roy I didn't hear of. This is early on, before Roy had his big moment retrospective, before he kind of became in the art world, public consciousness. Now, Roy DeCarava print is like 90 grand to buy a Roy DeCarava print. You know, he's deceased. But I went and stalked Roy DeCarava when I was back home. He worked at Hunter College. And I would write him, I would call him, and he would tell me that he wouldn't see the work of non-students, that he had to reserve his critique to people who were paying tuition.
Yeah.
So I just went there and sat in his office until he saw me. And then finally he saw me. And he told me I had my book of prints, you know, that I made in the darkroom. And he told me before I gave him the book, he said, you know, I've been known to tell people to stop shooting. You know, I'm not a nice guy. Like, I will tell you, if you suck, you should not do this work. You know, and now he's like, you still want me to see your work? And I'm sweating. So I hand him the book, and he's looking at me, you know, he's looking at the images, mad stoic, no expression on his face. Looking dope. And he finished the paid book, and he says, you should continue shooting. He said, but you print with too much contrast. Let me show you. He took me into his dark room, showed me how he print. I spent a whole day with him. And so that was the moment for me when Roy DeCarava, who's now probably the greatest influence, one of my greatest influences, told me that I should continue making images. You know, that was the moment. I said, okay, I have something.
That's really dope. And see, here's the thing. Here's the thing. When I'm letting people cook, right, it knocks out other questions. So that's really dope. And no, and I think the other thing that's really cool about it, you know, just based on a few things you said, I was telling you about my partner earlier. Y'all probably went to school together. The time is very similar, and the story is very similar. She was studying film, I think, in Melbourne. So there you go.
She's probably much younger than I am. Yeah,
yeah. But I think, like, and kind of the way that we get to it, like hearing like, hey, you know, kind of by accident, kind of by chance encounter, and this sort of creative life, this creative pursuit, you know, mine's is a little similar. Like, coming from, there were some artists around. I had a uncle that was an artist, but he passed before I was born. So I was like, oh, I have no reference point. And I mean, not even in this, I wanted to be a cartoon artist, like an illustrator and things of that, and doing comics. And I was like 24 and burnt out in my day job, you know, like, got to do something that makes money. That's what I would hear. I was like, I want to be an artist. Nah, you got to get a business degree. And I went to Morgan and, you know, had all of that different stuff. And, you know, I did the first job out of college, which was a marketing job, trying to make it a creative marketing job. It was a marketing analysis job. Not sexy, not fun. And I was looking for an outlet creatively. And I was like, I'm into some weird stuff. I like documenting and talking about different things and really revisiting like pop culture and media. So I started doing a podcast. This is 2009. I went across the street to Best Buy, bought a bunch of equipment, didn't know what I was doing. Spent that last $500 I had in my wallet, you know, and bought some gear. I still have the gear to this day. And that was sort of the thing. And it was just figuring it out. And one of the things you touched on earlier that I thought was really funny, being on this other side of it now, been podcasting for as long as I have, but also I've been able to be an educator for folks who are diving into the podcast scene. That's a side gig that I'm working in. And folks come to me and it's like, hey, so what do you think about podcasting? It's like, so do you have the stamina for it? Because I might tell you to stop. And I've said that to people, and I was like, that's a little spicy, but hearing that that's maybe part of your journey.
Yeah. I mean, it was honest. I think, you know, why I tell someone, and this is the guy who's known as the perennial genius of black photography. He's the first black man, first black person maybe, or black man for sure, to go to Cooper Union. You know, this is a real artist, elder, like, dedicate his life to this. And so for him to acknowledge me like that was huge. And he could have been like, he probably would have been better. It would have been better for me if he was like, don't waste your time, man. What are you doing? Like, this is not your thing, you know?
Well, I want to move into this a little bit. So Is there an experience? Because normally you talk about like the first gig, and feel free to chime in as it relates to any like projects you've worked on, any of your own projects, any sort of collaborations, any projects that you had clients, what have you. But could you share an experience that kind of pushed the boundaries of what those creative skills and those technical skills are? That it was like, I went from being at this level to I'm at this level now after this sort of project and this experience.
I worked on a series in Wilmington, and I can't remember the name of the series because I only did one. But it was like, probably a $200 million series for Hulu, car chases. And it was a femme fatale, big sets, big costumes. And I hadn't worked on, sets of that scale before. I hadn't worked on with crews of that scale before, chase scenes of that scale before. So I kind of went from making indie films, to doing this like huge thing all of a sudden. And it was a tough experience for me. It was, crews trying to sabotage me. It was kind of crazy. I was isolated way down in North Carolina, but I learned a lot from that. It took my level of understanding of the production of the process, and I was able to take that into, Tyler Gray, which is about the same level.
Yeah, I think when we have those moments, those experiences, it's and doing this podcast, right? I have done 700 plus at this point in 4 years of age. And sometimes I'll get someone, I'm like, how the hell did I get this person? And then other times I'm like, oh, okay, cool, this is good. And trying to deliver ultimately the same thing in terms of the effort that I'm putting in, the quality of what the output is going to be. And sometimes it's like this one left, whether it be the person's not really into the conversation, whether it is the person is just preoccupied, they have other things going on, or I just frankly sucked. And I will learn, I'll learn things from that, or even in being independent, as I'm pursuing this the way that I am, and sometimes things just blow up in your face, and I stick with it. Like I said, I've been doing the podcast thing for 15 years. But yeah, and when getting budgets now, getting funding now, I'm like, okay, I hope I do good. It's like the beginning of that In Is Crazy, the Richard Pryor joint. It's like, I hope I'm funny,
Yeah. No, it's real, man. It's I've been fired before, off a film project. It's me and because me and the directors, I don't know, it was whatever, it was a clash, it didn't work out. That took me back, my confidence back, a few steps. So, you go through, I'm sure every DP goes through, every time I step on the set, really, I feel like a charlatan. Every time I step on the set, I'm like, do I remember, do I do this? I don't remember. Every time feels like a new challenge, like, oh yeah, that's right, I do. And then you get one day and you're like, oh yeah, I do this.
How do you rebound from that though, when you have those moments when you feel like a charlatan, or you feel like people use imposter syndrome, but I don't know if they're I think that's reserved for a certain class of folk. But when you have those moments of, and I'm saying it maybe selfishly for myself, like, how do you recover from those moments? How do you, tap back into sort of what the source is, or what the being rooted in, like, I'm the shit.
I really just, I just go into like a real kind of Buddhistic philosophy that it's going to be, I'm going to show up and do my best, and it's going to be what it is. You know what I mean? And I think, and I have faith that I've been doing this for a minute. I have faith that I do actually know what I'm doing, and that it'll all fall into place, And so, but I'm always nervous. I'm always like, I don't know what this director's going to be like. I don't know how we're going to gel. I don't know how the crew, a lot of times you're meeting crews and working for them for the furthest crew in Chicago. I never met them. I didn't know them. And a lot of times in new television, these series like for Hulu or Amazon or whatever, the budgets are getting a bit smaller than they were And so me bringing a gaffer in from LA, or my gaffer from, most of my gaffer, the guys I work with continually from LA, but me bringing in my gaffers or my key grip, a lot of times it becomes a difficult conversation now. And so they want you to work with a local cat. And so you're interviewing cats and you're, hoping that they're good, and I got lucky in Chicago that I found the A Squad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was a young brother who was gaffer Adaye, big up Adaye, and Ed, who had our key grip. And their crews were fantastic. And the crews were, of color, mostly of color, and women. It was very diverse, essentially mostly, but it was a lot of diversity, a lot of different gender expressions and queer identities as well. So it was a good experience in that group.
I like the thing that you said earlier, sort of the Buddhistic, or even I even throw out there the gambate of it all, the Japanese thing. It's like, look, good luck doesn't exist. It's like, look, I'm going to do my thing, and the chips will fall where they will. But I know that I've done my piece. This is what I control in it, and I've been trying to abide by that because I really get caught in doing this. I'm good in this way. I'm good in this sort of control setting, or even one-to-one, like if we were in the sort of in the same space together, right? But when folks are in your ear and they're saying this is the next stage for you, you should be doing these like in-person things and I definitely want to get your take on this, because you have to get the attention economy. You have to grab people. You have to always be putting something out there. You got to 10x it, bro. It's like, no, I just want to do this. I like this. I like having conversations with people more talented than me, as I like to joke about. That's the thing I enjoy doing. And I try not to go too far away from that while sort of moving the needle that pushes the boundaries of, okay, I want to talk to these types of people. I want to have conversations with these folks. I want to be able to maybe improv probably 40% of this interview versus being completely structured. So, but, how do you, as you're progressing through your career and through your creative journey, which I always feels weird saying journey, how do you continue to like push like the boundaries of your creative expression while being able to work with clients and being able to be part of these different projects? How do you marry the two of those?
Well, I will say it's interesting, man. I was telling somebody the other day that I'm not super ambitious, I'm much more, my ambition really goes towards my curiosity and sort of learning something new and doing something better, exploring something better than what I did the last time. It's not really like I got to do a bigger project necessarily. I mean, I like money, don't get it twisted. Yeah. I'm a socialist who likes money, or enjoys nice, I say I enjoy pretty things, right?
Sure.
And so, but yeah, for the longest time, I couldn't get into the commercial world, not big, I would do like little small web kind of things, smaller web master classes and those kind of things. And they were decent. You can make, if a DP is working on master classes as an ancillary, you can make an ancillary outside of your other work. You can make an ancillary little 100 G's working in master classes, you know what I mean? Which is nice. Yeah. But it's not, and you work on sets, you learn how to work on sets, you get all these kind of thing that you can kind of, if you're a young DP, doing like that kind of thing is a good platform for a decent little living and learning, right? But that's not creative, you know what I mean? It's okay, you can learn, you can be a little creative, but it's 3 cameras on a person, basically. And so I came up with a few mentors and a few people that I idolize, like Arthur Jaffa, who's probably the biggest Black contemporary artist now, one of them, and who was a cinematographer in his early days and kind of stopped doing that as a major thing, as a main thing, and then got into the fine art world later in life. He's probably in his 60s, I would assume. And so Arthur Jaffa, going back to Arthur Jaffa did a film called Daughters of the Dust.
Yeah.
Right? That I saw when I was in high school. I forgot what year it was, but it was sometime early. And that was one of the first films I saw that I was like, this is art. Whoever shot this, I recognized it. I was like, whoever photographed this is an artist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then like obviously I saw Belly and Clockers and saw the work of Malik Saeed and started reading about that cat. It was another idol, and I realized that they were doing stuff together. And so once I became friends with AJ later on, you know, he started seeing my work and we developed a friendship. And so once AJ kind of blew up, he blew up like instantly. It was like off of this one Art Basel thing. And then he got this, he had an opportunity to direct this LeBron James Nike commercial. And at that time I hadn't done Nike commercial. I hadn't done any commercial even. I mean, I've done small commercials, you know, big, pretty decent sized commercials, nothing like that. Yeah. You know, nothing like Wyden Kennedy, LeBron James Nike commercial. And so he got the commercial and he was like, Shawn Peters is going to shoot it. And they were like, well, where's his Nike commercial? He was like, you don't have one. They were like, well, he's like, I'm not going to do it unless Shawn does it. Yep. And most directors don't do that. They're not going to compromise their bag for a DP. Yep. And so we did it. And I thought it was one of my best pieces of work at the time. And that was it. Then now I'm doing Super Bowl commercials and, you know, the biggest directors, biggest commercials, you know what I mean? And so where commercials is where the bag is for a DP. That's where you make your, am I doing your series or your film money? Because I don't need to. Yeah. So it affords you to make choices, you know, on what you want to do creatively. So that was a big gift for me. And I've been running, that's been by 5, 6 years ago. And I've been running ever since in the commercial world, which has allowed me to, you know, and now I'm shooting for Bradford Young. He's directing commercials now. I'm DPing for him. And I just directed a small thing for Sundance and a brand in Baltimore. So maybe hopefully I might start directing some things soon. But yeah, it was like but you know, what I didn't tell you, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question correctly. I'm kind of going on a tangent. Thanks. But what I didn't tell you is that after film school, after that whole experience, I was too broke to pursue film. So I ended up after graduate school, you know, temp jobs, hustling. And then I ran into a friend that was doing early on websites before people was even on that. Yeah. And so he was like, man, why don't you work with me, man? We can try to pitch these black companies. We had a little company called New York Online. And he was like, why don't we can pitch these businesses? It was like, you know, I'm talking about like, you know, Apollo Theater. We go to the Apollo Theater and try to get them a website. They didn't have one at that time. Or like Wells Chicken and Waffles, you know, Harlem, you know, stuff in Harlem and Brooklyn. Just black businesses that were known. We're like, you need a website. It's a thing called the internet. And so we did that, and I got a little experience understanding of that. And then I met his brother, and his brother was working at AT&T as like a data network salesman or something. So he was basically selling at that time T1 lines that were dedicated to like from New York to Japan, doing exchanges from bank to bank. It was like a pipe. This is when it was dial-up. Yeah. Maybe DSL was just coming on the scene. Like I think it was before that. You know, it was because I remember I had one of the first DSL pipes things. And so, you know, I was like, yo, I saw like a band. He was chilling. I was like, yo, where'd you get how can I get a job at AT&T? And he was like, well, I can't get you a job doing what I'm doing, but I can get you an entry-level sales job. So I got an interview. I got the job. So I ended up being at AT&T, and then I ended up with his job like maybe a year later, right? And so I started like, you know, my 26 years old. Back then, I'm doing very well financially. I'm doing way better than all my friends. Mm-hmm. You know, I had, you know, money, you know, for my age, you know, and living in Fort Greene, and I was tricking, you know, enjoying my life, you know, and I was able to still take trips to this place and that place and do still photography projects, and you know, when I had time off and all that. Yeah. But that took me away, and then I ended up a client of mine who was a Black-owned information technology company, a big one. took me from AT&T. It was like, they poached me, basically was like, why don't you come work for us? We'll give you like, at that time, we're talking about early, like, early 2000s, like 99, 2001.
Yeah.
They were like, we'll give you $150,000 plus bonus, you know what I mean, a year, 150, something crazy. I was making close to $175,000 a year at that time. And I was in my 20s. You know what I'm saying? Like my uncles and aunts, none of them were making that money. You know what I mean?
I mean that when I got out, and thank you for sharing that, because that definitely makes it another one of those connections where, my first job out of college was at that AT&T competitor, and I was doing marketing, and it was the most money I ever made, and it was at that time, and I was making more than both of my parents combined, and all of that different stuff, and having sort of those headaches that come there, but like I said, at 24, 2 years in, I'm like, I'm burnt out. This money doesn't matter.
No, that's what happened.
And even looking at the career trajectory of, well, you can do this, but sometimes you're only sleeping like 6 hours a night. I was like, nah, doesn't work for me. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I only sleep 6 hours at night now, but not because just because I can't sleep. But yeah, I mean, yeah. So I ended up it was a serpentine story, but I ended up with that management consulting company. The division I was in ended up leaving and starting their own company. Now I'm a partner in an IT company out in Jersey. It lasted for a few years. I can't remember how many before. And there was a controversy in the company. I left. Ended up starting a record label with some friends of mine, and we did this thing called Rebel Soul Records. We started working with artists like Martin Luther and this guy Cody Chestnut and a few other people that we were working with. And did that for a while, thinking that's an entry into being creative. And it was, I was helping shape these albums and stuff. And started doing events, music events at this place called Weeksville. I was early on working with Afropunk, that kind of stuff. And one day I was just like, I want to be a cinematographer. I was talking to this guy named Blitz the Ambassador, who ended up directing The Color Purple, this new Color Purple musical.
Yeah.
But this is when he was a musician. And I was booking him, and he was my boy, you know what I mean? But I was like, yo, Blitz, man, you're not going, I was telling him, we were sitting on my stoop in Bed-Stuy at the time, and he was like, we were just talking about life. He's my boy. So I was like, what are you doing? He was like, well, I'm just trying to, I said, you gotta stop trying, he's Canadian. And I was like, you gotta stop trying to rap like Nas, bro. I was like, you're not gonna be Nas. Like, where's Africa? Where's Africa in this?
Yeah.
You should be doing high life. You should be doing Ghanaian music. And so he was like, boom. So he made his whole record, Native Son, with the high life music. And he was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, man, if I had any courage, I'd be a cinematographer. So he was like, well, I'm gonna challenge you. So we challenged each other. So I'll make this record, this high life record, if you pursue your dream. And so I ended up, I had like maybe $6,000, $10,000 in the bank, maybe. And I ended up buying a camera and going to this summer course at NYU in cinematography, like right after we had this conversation. And then I ended up, it's a long story, man, but I ended up, this guy from Holland, a Dutch rapper who knew my work at Rebel Soul, found me in the States. He was like, I want you to work on this record with me here. So I worked A&R this record, and then we finished it. And then he was like, come back to Holland and talk to the labels with me. I went to Holland and we shot a music video for the record.
Yeah.
I came back. I'm just still scrambling, trying to figure out how to make my ends meet. And I see this Indiegogo campaign for Terrence Nance's short film, How Does It Feel? So I'm like, oh, this dude is brilliant. And I was like, wow, incredible. And it couldn't have been a week later, I saw him on the train platform because he has distinctive big hair. Yeah. And so I was like, are you Terrence Nance? He was like, yeah. He was like, I was like, oh, you live in this neighborhood? He said, yeah, I just got back. I was in Paris, for a couple of years studying, working. And I was like, man, I saw your thing, inspiring. And then he was like, what do you do? And I just said, I'm a cinematographer. I just said it.
Oh, yeah.
I just claimed it. You know what I mean? So he was like, you got a camera? I was like, yeah. He was like, I'm about to shoot this music video for my boy, and I need somebody with a camera. He said, can you send me something you shot? So I sent him the thing I just did in Holland. He loved it. He was like, yo, that's bananas. He's like, you want to work with me? So we ended up shooting a video for his boy, who was Blitz the Ambassador.
Wow.
So we ended up shooting this video, and it came out crazy. And my boy called me. I was in the music business for a long time, so my boy Guy Rute, who's in Baltimore now, called me out the blue and was like, "Yo, man," he was managing Pharoah Monch, and so he was like, "Yo, man, Pharoah saw this video, man, a Bliss named Bliss the Ambassador, and they had credits. And at the end, I saw your name." He was like, "You shoot video now?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Yo, can we meet? I'm trying to do this video for the song." So we ended up doing this video for Pharoah, and then we did another one. That's we did a independent feature called Oversimplification of Her Beauty. It went to Sundance, blah, 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 blah. And then, we did off a short, another short that we did that went to another festival. I got signed by an agent, by William Morris, agency. That was it.
I mean, the trajectory is just like you're Johnny on the spot all the time.
It was just one of those things where, like, I guess I was meant to get here. It took me a long time. I didn't start shooting again, motion. I was doing stills the whole time, but I didn't start shooting motion again. There's a story why I stopped. I forgot to tell you that, but that's maybe another podcast. But I was in the early 30s,
Yeah.
when I got back into it, 30, 34 maybe.
I mean, as I encroach on 40, I'm 39, just turned 39, but yeah, as I encroach on and I'm just like, sort of what is the next part of the wave? As an Aquarius, I always throw out the wave as the thing. I'm just riding the wave. And but also I'm ambitious, but ambitious in a very specific way. And I like the thing that you were saying, like, earlier about not necessarily being ambitious, but you like the things that you like. And I'll put this on it. Dark chocolate's not expensive. I'll say that much. It's not expensive. We have a lifestyle we must keep up. But yeah.
I think I know Aquarius is very well. Because all of my major, Terrence Nance is an Aquarius, all my major collaborators, a lot of my collaborators, I'm a Gemini, so it's like an Aquemini thing. So a lot of my collaborators have been Aquariuses, and I know that one of my partners for 9 years, she was an Aquarius. And I know that Aquariuses don't do well with not actualizing.
Yeah.
It becomes misery. They have to actualize, because they have most of their world, a lot of as far as I've learned, a lot of their world is in their head. Like a lot of the Aquarius' world, like how they experience the world is here.
You're spot on.
It's not through the outside world. It's internal.
You're spot on.
Yeah, so I can understand that. I can understand how you want to. And you guys are very curious and need to always learn too. So I can see how. I would just say my suggestion to you would be, age doesn't. I learned that if you want to do something, don't let age be a lot of people do that. They're like, "Oh, I'm too old." I was fully too old. I was in third career. That was my third career at that point. You know what I mean? Technology, music, and then boom. Yeah. And so I just was like, I'm gonna do it. And I was broke. And it took me a minute. But once I broke, I broke.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so you just have to know that, meditate on the fact that life is change, and that's inevitable anyway. So we can't be afraid of it.
It's a very, very deep thing you just said there. All right. Just So I got one more real question, right? And then I have a few rapid fire questions before we wrap up here, because I definitely want to be mindful of everything to get everything in. Hey guys, I want to tap back in real quick in the middle of this great interview to remind you yet again to leave a review on the podcast, wherever you listen, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on YouTube. Leave a comment, leave a review, subscribe. It definitely helps us. We're in a fight to beat the algorithm. There are so many podcasts out there. The numbers are in the hundreds of thousands. So I'm always appreciative of any time that you all spend with my podcast, but definitely make it known. Leave us a review, 5 stars, or whatever you think this podcast is worth. And definitely drop us a line. We're on X. We're on Instagram, Facebook, all of the platforms. Say hello, chat with us, chat with me, because I'm the person running it. But yeah, definitely hit us up, leave a review, all of that good stuff. Let us know what you think about the podcast. It really does mean a lot. And thank you for your continued support. And back to the podcast.
Mhm.
And this is sort of the last real one that I have for you. This is one that I've been kind of playing around and exploring recently. This notion
Mhm.
around like being a problem solver. I think we all have our different tools.
Mhm.
What have you? I've used the scenario multiple times. I'll set up for recording, and inevitably, just to make sure my process is tight, I'll forget something. I'll forget recording
Mhm.
device. I'll forget like the card, the mic, something that makes me MacGyver, right? Um,
Mhm.
and now, so when something inevitably goes awry, because there's always something that goes wrong, and I know from a production standpoint, there's always something that goes wrong. What in your sort of journey, like where you're at now, what was something that used to be like, insurmountable, something that felt like a mountain that now feels like a molehill, like it's light work?
Um, you know, I think getting to the point where what felt like a mountain before was just like, how do I become the cinematographer I am now in terms of my career, my access to work,
Yeah,
you know? Um, and now I'm like, I have to turn down work, you know what I mean? And so it was more like a fear of like, ugh, is this ever going to shift to abundance?
hmm,
Even I'm going to be to a point where I'm always kind of struggling to get known or someone to know my work. And then you have a tipping point, and that tipping point, that's no longer your reality. And then your reality is something else. So now the next desire for me is how do I balance work life? So my next journey for me is I don't want to work as hard as I work.
yeah,
You know what I mean? I want to create other passive incomes and figure out a way to only work when I really want to. And that's my next journey in life is to create like 70, 30% work, 70% life
I like that.
situation.
I like that a
You know what I
lot.
mean? So that's my goal. And for problem solving, one of the things I've learned, I'm gonna say this real quick because I have to run actually too. But for problem solving, I've learned that you have to have peace on set. Set is a very stressful thing. You have 5,000. You're working on I'm working on this. I was just working on this Amazon MGM Plus Amazon series, right? With Forrest Whitaker in Chicago. You got and there's Warner Brothers involved. So you got Warner Brothers execs there. You got the production company exec from LA there. You got MGM there. You got everybody's watching dailies. You got people expecting you to do things else. If you don't make your day in terms of time, you can get fired. If that becomes something that becomes more than a few times. So you got a lot. It's a lot of pressure, and then it's got to be beautiful and emotional. It's got to be all the things that you want. Under the clock. you know, and so, but what I've learned in that is that sort of that meditative process, like calm. I always lead too, and I'm going to say I lead with love, like completely. Like I lead with patience and love because I want to create a safe space for my crew and calmness because I realize that when people are in survival mode, when they're in stress mode, now they're trying to survive just to get to the next thing, you can't be creative under those circumstances.
Yeah,
Or you have your capacity is already exacerbated through stress, and so your brain capacity is already limited.
right.
Your creative capacity is already limited. And so my goal is for myself and for my people around me is to create a safe and nurturing space so that their brain capacity is now not worried about, oh, this person's going to go crazy or this thing, and now they're overachieving
Yeah.
because their brains are in a different stage. It's not survival. It's not the basic function. Now we've gone to a creative stage of the brain. And so the work blossoms. And once I kind of figured that out, and that became my modality, I started doing better work, and and with my collaborators.
Thank you. That's great. I honestly, as I'm going to listen back through this, I'm definitely going to tap back in because gems are being dropped, jewels are being dropped here, and And that's definitely a good one to close on the real pod with. And in these last few moments, I want to throw you these quick rapid fire questions, and then we'll wrap up. Um, so here's the first one. Here's the first one. And the rapid fire, don't overthink them. I always tell people, don't overthink it. It's just like, don't be an Aquarius. Don't be in your head. So what is a lie that you always tell yourself?
My age.
It's great. How do you spend your days? Like today, for instance, what are a couple things that you did today?
Today I went to the Museum of Photography, I think it's called. So I saw an exhibit today, and I made breakfast. Kind of my day.
So you added a follow-up question. I'm not going to ask you that next question. Like, yo, what you have? What you have for breakfast? Right? But this is the last one that I got, and this is one that always comes up. Me and my partner talk about this all the time, and we play casting director regularly. What is a Walter Mosley work that should be adapted into a TV show or series or even film?
Well, the two ones I thought should be adapted are being adapted. And those are the only ones I've read.
That's a great answer.
One is Man in My Basement, which is being adapted, which I was going to shoot, but I didn't end up doing it. And Tyler McGray, those are the only two Walter Mosley books I've actually read. So I'm not great to answer that question.
No, I dig it. It's an honest one. Like every time I see something that feels noirish, I'm like, yeah, we need to
I feel like every Walter Mosley book should be that. I mean, and they're going through that part. A lot of them are going to be made.
Good. I am looking forward to it. And I feel like I just got some tea that I was not supposed to get. So I'm feeling really happy about that. But really, truly, honestly, thank you so much for coming on and spending the time with me. And, just sharing, like I said, this has been a highlight for me and really privileged to be able to have this conversation with you. And, in these final moments, on this final moment, really, I want to give you the space to, tell folks where your website is at, social media, all of that good stuff. Shameless plugs, if you will. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I'm I'm Shawn PZ on Instagram, Peezieshawn, Shawn. ShawnPeters.com, I guess. I don't know. I'm not a big self promoter too much, but look forward to more of my own personal art coming soon. Both from still photography and also motion stuff. Starting to work on some things. Look for me to direct some things, hopefully in the future. I'm writing a feature length film too. So, hopefully look for me to do other things in the future soon.
And there you have it, folks. I want to again thank Shawn Peters for coming on and blessing us with a bit of his journey and his story. And I'm Rob Lee for Shawn Peters, saying that there's art, culture, and community in and around your neck of the woods. You've just got to look for it.